Good day, everyone. We are the Group M or Group Miracle, and we are to represent our lesson for today. Our group consists of two members, namely me, Clinjan T. Mercado, and Renz Toby Primo. Our lesson for today is Processes in Plants and Animals, Sensory and Motor Mechanism. Objectives. At the end of this lesson, the learners will be able to explain sensory and motor mechanism, explain sensory and motor mechanism in plants, explain sensory and motor mechanism in animals, identify the types of neurons, identify the types of stimuli. What is sensory and motor mechanism? The sensory and motor mechanism is the process by which sense data is processed into motor commands. The sensory mechanism is responsible for processing sensory information, while the motor mechanism gives us the ability to respond to what we see, smell, taste, and hear. How does it work? Everybody's body has its own set of sensory receptors, called peripheral nerves, which are connected to their spinal cord, the central nervous system, and processes the signals to allow their muscles to contract in order to make one's body in different ways or just keep it still. The brain combines information from the eyes, ears, muscles, and the joints to keep your body in top shape. Sensory and motor mechanism is a kind of behavior control. It helps one to move, maintain posture, balance, and make coordinated movements in different directions. It helps to maintain equilibrium of the body. The brain, therefore, has some control over these functions. The brain is the central control unit which receives information from all the senses like sight, smell, taste, touch, and hearing, etc., and then integrates it and sends it to all parts of the body through the central nervous system or sensory channels. How does sensory and motor mechanism work in plants? Sensory mechanism. A sensory system is the set of specialized cells and structures that carries information about the state of a plant to the rest of its body. The sensory system can detect and respond to such things as light, gravity, temperature, sound, touch, or chemicals from outside sources. In some plants, there are eye spots that act as sensors for light condition in order to maximize photosynthesis. Some plants will self-destruct when their sensory system detects mechanical stress and damage. Example: the sunflower's heliotropism and the pea plant's sensitivity to light are examples of how plants are able to react to external stimuli or sensory input. Heliotropism is an example of tropism, a type of phototropism, in which the plant moves in response to light. Pea plants can also tell when they can have been touched by an insect because they are sensitive to touch. Motor mechanism. A motor is any system that generates motion such as muscle or an internal movement such as respiration. In plants, a motor system is used to transport nutrients and water from one part of the plant to another. Example: a plant has a flower which has a specific color or appearance that attracts pollinators. The pollinator moving towards the flower activates mechanoreceptors on its body, causing it to move towards the flower. As it moves towards the flower, contract mechanoreceptors in its body cause it extend its tongue and rub against the anthers of flower in order to collect pollen. Plant responses to light. In phototropism, a plant bends or grows directionally in response to light. This is a reaction known as phototropism with the plant displaying a response that is based on light intensity. It is a type of tropism in which the plant body or a cell undergoes a change in shape, size, or positioning. There are two types of phototropism, positive and negative. The positive phototropic response is when the plant moves towards an intense source of light, while the negative response is when the plant moves away from the light. How does this happen? Well, when light from the sun falls on or in front of an illuminated plant part, it produces energy called photons that stimulate certain processes in the plant cells. These photons then activate biochemical reactions which lead to distinctive responses. When exposed to intense light, plants can display various kinds of phototropism, such as upward growth and subsequent turgor-driven branching and stimulation of metabolism. In less intense sunlight, these same responses will be inhibited. A plant, like humans, has a circadian rhythm that is ultimately controlled by a number of internal and external cues. Light is received by the plant on a daily basis, and some amount of it reaches the plant throughout the day, with more light reaching the plant at night than during the day. Plant responses to gravity. Plants respond directly to Earth's gravitational attraction and also to light. Growing toward gravity would be an incorrect reaction, as plants are not directed by gravity alone. If a plant was deprived of all other information about its environment, that is light, then it might grow toward gravity as one possible theory for how plants orient themselves. Plant cells respond to gravitational forces by rapidly elongating their axes, which causes them to slope downward towards the Earth's center. Although this theory is interesting, it seems unlikely that gravity alone would be the main determinant of how plants grow toward light. In response to light cues, plants must dissipate energy through a complex series of reactions that depend on many other factors, such as nutrients and temperature. For example, if you were to take a plant that was used to 12 hours of darkness and suddenly expose it to light, the plant will grow towards the direction of the light. Plant responses to wind and touch. Hypnotic responses include opening and closing leaves, petals, or other parts of the plant as a reaction to touch. These structural responses have been studied extensively, and it's generally accepted that they are a reflex of the plant that arises from mechanical stimulation. Different species have differing responses to touch, depending on the sensitivity of their individual cells and the degree of mechanical stimulation. These reflexes are known to affect flowering and fruit set in plants. Thigmonastic response to touch is also known to be an important factor in the germination of certain species. In the Venus flytrap, for example, the sudden closure of the petal-like leaves on touch induces rapid water uptake from the surrounding soil. Shoe cells in the petal surfaces. This traps a small insect between leaf surfaces and triggers the plant to move other leaves, absorb the insect, and digest it with enzymes. Thigmonastic response can be classified as either thigmonasty or nastic movements. Depending on the extent of movement involved, thigmonastics is a term used in botany and horticulture to describe movement of leaves, petals, or other plant parts in response to touch. Nastic movements are not reversible because their structural changes that do not involve kinesis or movement.
Sensory and mechanism of animals. A sensory motor mechanism in animals is described in terms of brain circuit firing between the reception of stimuli, the sensory input, and muscle action, the motor output. A worker honeybee, Apis mellifera, traveling back to her colony from a flower field many kilometers away, is an example. Some of the mechanism driving the bee's astounding feat of homing include the sensory processes she uses. Sensory system detects signal from the outside environment and communicates them to the body via the nervous system. The sensory system relies on the specialized sensory receptor cells that transduce external stimuli into changes in membrane potentials. These cells are classified as sensory neurons, interneurons, or motor neurons, depending on their function. These three types of nerve cell work together to receive external inputs and convey the impulse to muscles or glands throughout the body in order to respond appropriately. The basic neuron type. The basic neuron types are sensory neuron, motor neuron, and interneurons. Definition and function of basic neuron type. The sensory neurons are the nerve cells that are activated by the sensory input from the environment. For example, when you touch a hot surface with your fingertips, the sensory neurons will be the ones firing and sending up signals to the rest of the nervous system about the information they have received. The motor neurons are cells in the brain and spinal cord that allows us to move, speak, swallow, and breathe. By sending commands from the brain to the muscle that carry out these functions. Their nerve fibers are the longest in the body. A single axon can stretch from the base of the spinal cord all the way to the toes. The interneurons are the core nodes of neural circuits that allow sensory or motor neurons to communicate with the central nervous system, the CNS. In the adult mammalian brain, they serve crucial roles in reflexes, neuronal oscillation, and neurogenesis. The types of stimuli in animals. A stimulus is a change in the environment that triggers a behavioral response. It could be anything or an occurrence that an animal notices with its senses. Stimuli include the sight of food, the sound of a potential predator, and the fragrance of a meat. They could also include daily occurrences such as nightfall and seasonal occurrences such as temperature dips. Animals respond to stimuli. Each of these stimuli causes animals to react differently. Hibernation, migration, defense, and courting are some of the ways animals respond to environmental cues. Some animals will hibernate as a response of the chilly weather stimulus. Hibernation is a state in which the body's activity is drastically decreased in order to conserve stored food. Migration is the movement of animals from one place to another in response to seasonal changes. They travel to other places where food is available. Defense mechanism vary with different types of animals. Some examples are camouflage, smell, stingers, ejection, mimicry, and grouping. Courtship in animals is usually a behavioral process whereby adults of a species try to attract a potential mate.